Well, I'm super excited to welcome our friend Carl Jones II to the stage. He is a freelance photographer from Detroit, Michigan. He has worked on assignments for brands and leagues like IndyCar, NCAA basketball, NFL, MLB, PGA golf. And so we're really excited to have him come on. Come on up, Carl. And we're going to there he is. How's it going, Carl?
Good. How's it going?
Good. So we're gonna get your screen settled, and we can't wait to hear from you. Looks good. Just got to present, and then I'll let you take it away.
So yes, the Detroit Golf Club has been around since 1899. It contains two 18-hole courses designed by famed golf designer Donald Ross. It hosted the first PGA Tour event in the city of Detroit in 2019, and that was the inaugural Rocket Mortgage Classic. And we all know last year everybody took a hit, and even though the classic still took place, there were no fans in attendance. So for 2021, there was an initiative which added a 3-day tournament before Rocket Mortgage, and it was the work of Rocket Mortgage Companies, which is led by Mr. Dan Gilbert, who has been a big proponent of the city of Detroit. Intersport out of Chicago, who is a media and marketing firm, and then local community leaders who are big in the golf space in the area and introducing golf to Detroit youth. So we got the John Shippen Invitational. And who was John Shippen? John Shippen was the country's first Black golf professional. So the intent of this invitational, it was established by Intersport to identify historical barriers to and expand upon Black representation in golf and create awareness, access, and opportunities for persons of color in the business of sports. So what they did during the 3 days is they had a golf tournament which consisted of professional and amateur golfers. And then after the tournament was over, the following day, there was a business summit, which they did virtually. And they brought in various leaders from the sports industry to talk to college and high school students about careers in sports. So what does this have to do with me? So when I saw the announcement of the tournament coming and then the John Shippen happening right before Rocket Mortgage, I said, okay, I shot golf back in 2019. Maybe I should reach out and see if they are looking for a photographer for this. So I did reach out. At the time, they weren't thinking about visual assets. They were still doing a lot of planning. So they said, we'll get back with you. So I hadn't heard anything for a while, and it was getting close. And I got an email that said, hey, you reached out to us prior, wondering if you were still interested. So we started that process. So my approach for that process was, number one, assess the needs of the client. Once you understand that and once you know that, then how can you as a photographer solve a problem for the client? And then use innovation to solve that problem and then also provide value on the back end. So assessing the client's needs. So with the tournament itself, there was the men's side and there was the women's side. The men, there were 21 competitors, and then for the women, there were 6 pairs. So mind you, they're on 2 different sides of the golf course. So that was something that I had to keep in mind as a photographer and how I'm going to cover this event. The client required photos of golfers doing rounds 1 and 2. Then at the end of the women's part of it, I think it was 3 teams, the last 3 teams who did not win, then those 6 ladies played an individual shootout in which the winner of that shootout got an exemption to a future LPGA tournament. And then, of course, you had award ceremonies that needed to be covered as well. Then also you had crossover coverage because some of our participants participated in Rocket Mortgage Classic events as well. There was a 313 Celebrity Challenge. If any of you are familiar with Eminem's 8 Mile movie, 313 is the Detroit area code. So that's what it's named after. And then the men's side, the winner received an exemption into the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So this was Tim O'Neill. He was the men's winner. And as you see, he was awarded a sponsor exemption to the Rocket Mortgage Classic. That's Tim after he won and got interviewed. And then on the women's side, you had the team of Anita Ueda and Shasta Avery Hart, and they won an exemption into the LPGA Tour's Dow Great Lakes Bay Invitational, which was, I think, the following month. And that was them after they won. And so basically, my approach was to catch the players in play, but it was also to get all of these moments that happen in between play. Because these assets, even though they were used during this year, I think it's going to be more important to have these assets for next year when you really are starting to promote next year's event. Okay, so how did I solve this problem? So the last thing the client wants to do is have to worry about images and how they're going to get images and things of that nature. So basically, I took on ownership of all of that. So I said, what tools do I have that I can use to help them get that job done? So with my own PhotoShelter account, I decided to build folders based on the day. And then later on, I built additional folders to kind of move some assets over and kind of organize things a little bit more. But my biggest one was the daily drop folder that I used to house real-time content to be accessed by Intersport personnel and John Shipping personnel. So one scenario I remember on the second round, the top two men's competitors were like real close, and then like 10 minutes later after they teed off on two other holes, it switched. So now you have assets for all of these individuals, and so now that gives them the opportunity to, okay, I need a picture of this guy, I can put him up real quick because I already have it. uh, you had people that were on the course, and you also had people that were back in the media room doing press releases of things of that. So my people, my Intersport folks in the media room were able to log on the traditional way, as you see on the screen, and pull assets this way. And then the ones that were out on the course were able to get them mobile in a mobile way. And at the end of each day, I would upload full res, edited, and keyworded images for them to have to do whatever they needed to do. More on course action. So innovation, what did I use? So I up until a few days ago, because the season is over here in Detroit, but I was also a live content creator for Major League Baseball. And I know the process we use is Greenfly and Slack to communicate. Well, I know I didn't have Greenfly as an individual, so I had to come up with a way to get the same results with the tools that I have. So using my Nikon cameras, I use Nikon's app SnapBridge to get images from the camera to my mobile device, which was iPhone and iPad. I use the PhotoShelter app to upload these images into these folders that I had previously built. And then I gave my client FileFlow for them to be able to access when they were out and about and needed an image quickly. You see more play. out on the course, providing value. So I also figured that video is becoming more and more important for a lot of things, especially on social media. So with my work in MLB, it got me into the habit of not solely focusing on photos, but kind of doing the 1-2 step back and forth from photo to video. So I would capture short video clips of players teeing off or players walking the course or interacting with each other. And like I said, these assets can be utilized next year to flood social media and kind of show a recap of what took place the year prior. Also, partnership and branding. Mostly every hole has some type of sponsor logo on it. And it's important to get that stuff as well. And as you can see in this next shot, you have Rocket Mortgage across the course. During the John Shippen tournament, this big video board contained the John Shippen logo on it. But if you look at the tee box down here, Dow Chemicals was one of our sponsors. And then you have the tournament logo on the bottom, Rocket Mortgage in there. So it's important to get all of this because these sponsors, I'm sure they pay a lot of money to be sponsors. And it's important that we capture their logos and their branding throughout the course. So, okay, let me go back to previous. All right. So here is where we transitioned into the Area 313 Celebrity Scramble. So the John Shippen events were over, and then now you're starting to filter into the Rocket Mortgage Classic events. And so this 313 Area Scramble consisted of PGA players who were playing in the Rocket Mortgage Classic, local celebrities, not just Detroit local celebrities, but you had a lot of other people who are big in the golf world. Uh, they came out. And then some of our participants in the John Shippen Invitational were a part of these teams. And these teams were put together for a particular charity, and they all went out and they played. So that was one of our players. And then if you look over to the far side, that's Larry Fitzgerald, receiver for the Arizona Cardinals and avid golfer. Uh, Teams again celebrating after I think this guy he hit like a long he did something, but his teammates were pretty happy with what he did. I think this is Lexi Thompson. She's an LPGA player. The great Barry Sanders, Detroit Lion, and then you see Larry in the background. This is Shasta Avery Hart. She was part of that women's duo that won the John Shippen. She was on Phil Mickelson's team. That's her again. That was the group that won. Actually, hiding behind the gentleman in the pink shirt is Tim O'Neill. So Tim was the gentleman that won the John Shippen Invitational and moved on to the Rocket Mortgage Classic the next day. And this is going into Tim's first round. That was him teeing off. I'm following him through the course. He did not make it past round one. So after this day, that pretty much wrapped up my job. Being on the course, I stayed around and kind of tightened up some stuff in terms of files and things like that. Nice close up. One thing I will say is having like the Getty and USA Today guys out there covering this as well. It's nice to talk to them to kind of see the stuff that they do and see the things that they capture. And I know one gentleman told me how this clean golf shot of them after they swing is like very important. And that was something I've seen it a lot, but never really kept it in mind. So I always try to talk to as many people as I can just to get a feel for what they do and how can I do things a little bit better. Because at the end of the day, it's about providing the client the best product we can provide them. That was Tim and his caddy. And that is it for my presentation.
Incredible. Carl, I love all your photos. We're gonna take the screen away from you, so no worries there.
Okay.
I love the color in your work, like your post-processing, very nice. Gotta
So
say.
that is my own personal aesthetic. That's not
Yeah.
what I delivered them. I delivered them a basic, look, but I know for this presentation, I said, well, let me go with what I normally do.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, cool. Well, it's time for some Q&A. We're gonna get some
Okay.
Q&A in the live chat going, but I have a few questions I'm already interested in.
Okay.
So we'll start there. I know you spoke about video as well, and so I wanted to briefly touch on that. Are you seeing that more and more on assignments when you're a freelance assigned as a freelance photographer? What are your thoughts on like adding that request these days and adding more value with that?
I know a lot of people ask, and I'll come from a wedding perspective. I know when a bride is looking for a wedding photographer, that's like the first thing they ask. Well, can you do video? Or if somebody has an event, can you do video? And I remember up until maybe a year and a half ago, I'd say no, there's no way I can. And I will say this: I think if you are going to offer that service, you do want to have the manpower to get it done because as a photographer, we zone into what we're doing, and it's hard to flip that switch off to say, okay, I need to stop shooting and I need to switch to video. I will credit MLB again, working in that capacity to where we had to do both. It kind of gets you in the mindset of what is going to be more of an impactful moment. And I will give you all an example. Miguel Cabrera was up for 500 home runs. So when he hit, I think after he hit 497 and got to 498, it was every time Miggy goes to bat, go to video. And so you start to develop what becomes important. But I think a photographer can get it done doing both. It just depends on the event and what that client wants. But
Hmm.
I think it's good to be able to offer it
Hmm.
because not everybody thinks about it. They think about, oh, I need pictures. Well,
Yeah.
hey, have you thought about maybe adding video to your needs?
In your experience, do you use the same camera or is that something you know, if you're going video, you switch your tools up?
So I'm a Nikon user. I went to mirrorless. I'm not 100% mirrorless, but having the mirrorless camera, I think that has allowed me to kind of do it or get into it a little bit more. And I'm
Nice.
just at the flick of a button, I'm switching back and forth.
I recently got a mirrorless Nikon as well. I'm excited to like
Good,
try it out
good,
more.
good man, Jeremy. Good man.
Yeah. We have an awesome question from Larissa. What is it like creating work that also creates representation opportunities in the golf world?
So what I noticed being out there, there were a lot of times that players would come up to me and give me a high five, a handshake, or nod. Hey man, thanks for being out here covering us. So it made me feel good because that was kind of one of the things that sparked my interest when I saw it and when I saw what it was about. I said, okay, this is good.
Hmm.
So it's important. It's important, and I think a lot of times if you have an event like this, sometimes you don't see representation on the creative side. And I think
Mm-hmm.
me being out there, I mean, they were like, "Oh wow, hey man, how's it going?" So it's good. It's good.
That's awesome. I like to hear that. We have a question here in the live chat. Carl, when did you get interested in photography? How'd you get
So
into it?
my dad was a photographer, so I've been interested in it since I was a kid. And I've always had a camera in some capacity. I know when I was in the military, camera went with me pretty much everywhere. It wasn't until 2010 that I decided to buy a DSLR, and then that's when it kind of picked up again.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. I hear a lot of people like start in the newsroom or with journalism, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's a common way to start when you're early on. But I've also heard, inspiration from people like your parents or
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. All right, I'm going to throw it over one more question because we're, getting short on time. But if anyone else has questions for Carl, definitely drop them in the live chat. And Carl, you can hop in after this if you got the time to
Okay.
answer more questions. Um, we recently published a blog post about top tips for freelance sports photographers. And so I want to know what's one of your top tips as we head into the next year? What's one of your top tips for freelance sports photographers?
So I think the biggest thing for me, and people have probably heard me say this before, is building genuine relationships. Um, a lot of times you see people who will reach out to somebody just because they either want an opportunity or things like that. You got to get to know people. And I will say my biggest example of that is I had the pleasure of meeting Terrell Lloyd from the 49ers back in 2017. He did a workshop. I attended the workshop, but we continued to communicate after that. And when I did start shooting football, and I started shooting high school football, but he would give me pointers on Instagram. Hey, nice shot. Maybe try this and things like that. So we developed a friendship. And I think you have to do that, and you have to get to know people outside of the photography part of it. See what people like. You might share some of the same interests or whatever, but build a relationship, make it genuine, and keep it going.